Hey, my name is Jamie. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I recently went down a rabbit hole of videos in the language community here on YouTube, and I got stuck on this video of this guy named Katsumoto. He is a legend in the language learning community because he's known for learning near perfect Japanese in the span of 18 months. How did he do it? So that question alone led me down another rabbit hole of hours of YouTube videos, and most of them were from YouTuber Matt versus Japan. You may know him. He's getting a lot bigger on YouTube recently. I recently just found him and I love his content. I found so many resources that have me thinking, what's the best way to learn a language? Now, I've been studying Korean for about 2 years now, and I'm really proud of the progress that I've made. I can have basic conversations. I can understand a lot of what I'm listening. My listening skill is pretty good. I am lacking a little bit in the vocabulary section of Korean, but I am proud of where I've gotten so far. I would say I'm at an intermediate level, but in 2 years, I don't know. I feel like recently my Korean has just plateaued. It's getting harder for me to study Korean. I feel like I'm not making as much progress. You know, when you first start learning a language, the line chart, it just goes like this, because you go from knowing nothing to like so much in such a short amount of time. And then you kind of just hit this like intermediate plateau where you're kind of just like, sailing along intermediate level. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm in desperate need of changing up my routine. I know I just posted a video like a few weeks ago of what my Korean study routine looked like when I first started learning Korean. And that worked for me then because, like I said, you go from 0 to 100 real quick. But now that I'm at an intermediate level, I feel like I need to change something if I want to get to the level that I'm hoping to get to. So this dude Katsumoto, going back to him, I learned that a lot of his study method that he used to learn Japanese in 18 months came from the linguist Dr. Stephen Krashen, who has a whole thesis on how to learn a language fluently, and most of it is around this idea that language is not learned, it's acquired. And the way that you acquire a language is subconsciously. So there are 5 hypotheses of Krashen's theory, and I'm gonna read them to you now. So I'm gonna start looking at my screen. So here are the 5 hypotheses of Krashen's theory of second language acquisition. I'm going to read these, and then I also added in some screenshots of an article that briefly describe each hypothesis. It's up to you if you want to pause and read them, or you can click the link in my description and read the article yourself. So the first one is the acquisition learning hypothesis, the monitor hypothesis, the input hypothesis, the effective filter hypothesis, and the natural order hypothesis. So going back to Katsumoto, he made a website called AJAT, and he pretty much laid everything out on his website in the table of contents. I did go to his table of contents and try to read everything, but it was kind of just overwhelming how much information there was there. Matt versus Japan recently made a website called Refold.la, and it is beautifully made. I love the layout of this website, and it is a information goldmine. You should really check it out. And it's basically everything that I just talked about from Stephen Krashen and Katsumoto, just laid out in a very comprehensible way. And it just gives you a roadmap. It's literally called a roadmap of what you have to do to become fluent in your target language. And it works for any language that you want to learn, this theory. The website has a simple and a detailed roadmap. The simple roadmap will take you about an hour to read, whereas the detailed roadmap will take you about 4 hours or more. I read the detailed roadmap because I just wanted to be more equipped before I start my journey. Now, the most important part of this method that you're going to find on Refold is about active immersion. And underneath this active immersion umbrella are going to be 2 types of immersion, intensive immersion and free flow immersion. Now, intensive immersion, let me give you an example. It would be like watching a TV show or reading a book in your target language and basically reading to understand it. So like looking up everything that you didn't understand, or almost everything that you didn't understand, and it would take you a long time. And then free flow immersion is going to be the second type, and it's of you just like listening subconsciously, not really caring about what you're listening to, just letting the language wash over you, maybe looking up a couple of things here and there that you didn't really understand, but for the most part just absorbing it. Now, of course, active immersion is going to be the most important aspect of language acquisition, but it's not the only thing that you have to do. Alongside of active immersion, you still need to learn vocabulary and grammar, and this is going to be like your active study time. And Refold suggests using Anki to learn vocabulary. And Anki is an SRS, a spaced repetition system app that predicts when you're going to forget vocabulary, and it reminds you before you forget. So what I found interesting is that speaking doesn't happen until stage 3. And I have heard of some other YouTubers who have used the Refold method, or Katsumoto's from Katsumoto's table of contents method, or Dr. Crashens have just used this kind of active immersion method and have been in stage 2 where you're still just getting input. You're not even speaking yet for like a year. Like, people are in stage 2 for a year. They are literally just getting input and input and input, and they don't even start even talking until like stage 3, a year or 6 months or 8 months later. And I feel like that just goes against everything that I've even like preached to people. I'm like, you need to start talking now. And so that's kind of like the hardest, or like the most jarring part of this method, but I'm so incredibly intrigued by it that I am like willing to just try my best and do it. Now, as someone who already has a foundation in Korean, I believe I should be starting at stage 2. Now, stage 0 and stage 1, that's like if you are starting from scratch with a new language. You have to learn the writing system, phonetics, get a base on like present, past, future tense in that language. I already have a base of like Korean sentence structure. I can have basic conversation. I know the writing system. I know the phonetics. I think though, I probably am at stage 2. I don't know how long I'm gonna stay in stage 2, which I'm really curious about. But when I watch something in Korean without subs, I can understand some of what they're saying, but not everything. And on Refold, there is like a little part about like, where are you at in your language, like what stage are you kind of at, and they do give an example of like how much you understand, and I feel like I fit into stage 2. So I'm gonna start from stage 2, and my plan is to document my journey here on YouTube as well as on my TikTok, and I'm going to try to follow Refold's method religiously and track my Korean progress here. Now on the website, there's actually a scheduled example of how much you should be doing this every day, getting active immersion. And for a very hard foreign language to a native English speaker like Korean, they say that I should be studying for 2 hours of just active immersion, and it would be something like 90 minutes of free flow and then 30 minutes of intensive immersion. So 90 minutes of just like getting input, not really caring about looking up any like words, just letting it wash over you, and 30 minutes of intensive immersion, so reading or watching a show or something, and making sure I understand what I am getting from that input. And I think what has been brought to my attention since going down this rabbit hole of videos is that learning a foreign language isn't easy. We see a lot of YouTubers who are in the language community here on TikTok talking about, how to be fluent in Korean in like 3 months, or like how to learn Japanese in like 4 months or whatever. Like, no, like, no. The people who we see speaking fluent Japanese or Korean or Arabic, those people put in the time and the effort to get to that point that they're at. And I'm sure they didn't follow any YouTube videos that have the title, learn Korean in 4 months, learn Japanese in 3 months. It takes a lot of dedication and someone that's mentally strong to get to that point of fluency. But yeah, I'm really excited to track my journey. I am excited to document it. I can't wait to see what happens in my Korean ability. And yeah, I plan on doing some updates here and there. And yeah, I'm just excited. So if you want to follow along my Refold journey and see where I get with my Korean fluency, then I would love it if you subscribed. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.